Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Deborah Rue, CEO of Rue Global Impact and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. I'm really looking forward to talking to my guest today. Her PR rep reached out to me and told me about her work, and I was just really fascinated with what she was doing. And I think you're going to be really fascinated as well. Today's guest is Shari Foos, and she is the creator of the narrativemethod.com. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. She also is involved with DIY Human, which if you're curious about that, I was as well. She's going to tell us about that. And before I start, we're going to both give you a visual description for anyone that's listening to it or cannot see us. So I am a older Caucasian woman with purple and gray hair. I have on brown glasses today with a little chain to make so that I always know where my glasses are. And I'm wearing a black and white dress today. So Shari, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. I am also an older woman. I am wearing glasses. I am white. I have dyed blondish light brown hair. I used to have black hair, and I am 5'3" and about a medium build.
And her glasses are so great. She's got sparkles. She's got bling on the top of her glasses. So just wanted to say that for anybody that can't see it too. I love bling. So, well, tell us about
the narrative method. I started that 10 years ago after I had studied narrative medicine at Columbia University. And I got a master's in that. And I had already been a marriage and family therapist for many years. And I was just so pulled in by the social justice aspect of, first of all, teaching empathy to doctors, making doctors aware of the person and the whole person, and not to just see people as their diagnoses. When doctors ask questions about a patient, the patient opens up and may give answers that have a lot of information about whatever is going on with them that they wouldn't know otherwise. And I knew that I wasn't going to work in the medical field, but I decided to combine everything I was passionate about, from performance to psychotherapy, narrative medicine, and I created a non-hierarchical group experience where strangers come together, and without small talk or without probing into anything that's not already offered, we show either a photo or a video or something very compelling as a jumping off point. Then people get a prompt and they come together either in a conversation group or a writing group and express themselves in however they want. The point is, when we're invited to be who we can feel and seen, we can hear other people and develop the kinds of bonds that are essential to human thriving, especially now. And that's really what I felt my calling was. I love to put people together, and I love to see people laugh and have their minds blown from fascinating material.
Ooh, well said. And I also believe that you are correct that especially now, because we've all, lived through years of the pandemic and COVID-19. I know here in the United States, not only is it GAD, Global Accessibility Awareness Day, I'll say happy to everyone for that, but we also are flying our flags at half-mast because over 1 million Americans have died from COVID. So times are very different. And I see a lot of conversations, Shari, about building back better, building back better. I don't want to build back better. I want to build back inclusively and diversely and really honor who we really are as individuals. But I also am finding that one way that I'm trying to handle all of this intensity, and a lot of my viewers know this, but sadly, my husband passed away in March. And so yeah, our family is devastated like so many other families. So how do we really come together and find who our tribes are, and why is it more important now than ever before? And you talked about that a little bit, but I was wondering if you would just talk about that a little bit more.
I think it's even before the pandemic. I think since the turn of the century, it's really accelerated. First of all, everybody gets different news. Everybody has different entertainment. We all have different influences. And whereas in the past, even if the things we were all exposed to weren't necessarily the most interesting, certain television shows and so forth, there was a frame of reference. American education had a similarity through different areas. There was a frame of reference. There was a sense of citizenship and good-natured treatment of your fellow human. And it also lacked consciousness, so we must say that. It also lacked the appreciation and understanding that people who were different were whole. And so we don't want to, as you alluded to, simply improve on what we had. Rather, we need to expand, to accept the fact that technology is here to stay. It has some wonderful qualities, but we pay a huge price in lack of humanity. And whatever we must do to regain ourselves and our confidence, because we're constantly bombarded by what we at the narrative method refer to as the cult of culture, the nonstop negative messages that have taught us all we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, rich enough, tall. There's not enough. When you're in a group of people, and this is why I love group work, when you're in a group of people, it's so different than sitting with one other person. It's profound and essential to have close friendships. But when you're in a group and you say how you feel about something, maybe an insecurity that you've gotten the message from media and influencers and all that stuff, and everyone nods like, I get it, I feel insecure about that as well, suddenly you're not crazy, there's nothing wrong with you, and you belong. And that is my goal, to make people welcome and help us all belong to the human family.
And really honor the human family. I know that when I was growing up, and I know this is still happening, because I did it with my children, I was really encouraged to be be really good with my civic responsibility, be a good citizen, Deborah. And that means voting and informing your vote and all the things. And it also means staying on top of the news and understanding what's happening in the world. But during this really intense walk that we've all had, I couldn't do it. I still am not doing it. I am not watching any news. I am on social media, but I stay in my lane. I stay in what is important to me. And the reason why, Shari, I'm doing it is for my mental health. I just don't feel I'm stable enough to listen to the horror every day that is the news. And I feel sometimes maybe I'm a bad American because I'm not paying attention. And as soon as I feel that, I challenge that notion. But I think a lot of people are really struggling to understand, how do we move forward? I know it's just interesting, some of the things I've seen in my own neighborhood of people fighting with each other about past presidents or current. I want to be a good neighbor to you. I want to help you if you get in trouble. I don't want to talk to you about politics. I remember we always said, Shari, don't talk about politics or religion. And then of course we all did, but it's confusing to so many people. And I'm just wondering how you advise people to walk these confusing times.
First of all, we can't be useful to others unless we have our own balance. And I don't know how people who are in politics stand that constant barrage. I try and keep up on the world news. And there are times, just as you're saying, where you just feel like I'm getting frazzled.
Right.
I can't handle it. Or I'm very busy working on something. The goal in all of this, to me, is not to be perfect. It's to appreciate that the world is very complex, and the way things are today are not optimal for that human being. And so we are really learning ways to combat the destruction that is caused, because there's no news that's good news that's reported.
Right.
because it doesn't sell. But I believe we could train a listening public or a watching public to really want to hear the good news. How else do you stay focused, and how else
Right.
do
And
you
hopeful. I one day, this was about 9 months ago, I went to Alexa and I said, Alexa, give me some good news. And so she did. She told me this cool little story and it was fun. The next day, I said, Alexa, give me some good news. And she told me the same story. And that just
oh,
made me so sad. I thought,
oh,
really? We only have one good news story in the world, 2 days in the row. And I know that wasn't true, but it made me very sad. Now, that was a long time ago. Maybe Alexa does give us good news now, but I think it goes back to why what you're saying really, we've got to find, I'm using the word tribe, but we have to find people that are like us that, for example, one thing that I really want to do, and you obviously are the same way, Sherry, is we just want to make a difference. We want the world to work for more people. And so I want to be with like-minded others that think it's not all about me. I'll get mine and just don't get in my way, Sherry, and you'll be fine. But I'm going to get, oh, stop this.
and then on the other hand, there are days where that's all we can do. So I think in the same way, we have to be tolerant of our own inability to be everywhere all the time, up on top. The other day, I was deleting emails. I had 8,000 emails in my trash for a month. And I don't get the most emails in the world, but the amount of stuff that we have to go through every day. I think one thing is really important to realize as humans, and we all know this, all of us who are therapists, you don't have to have a common background to understand someone. You have to have empathy.
Mhm.
That means putting yourself aside to listen to someone else's story from their perspective without your own assumptions getting in the way. And I must people who are from like a really similar tribe and you just have neuroscience, what we are discovering are so many proofs of things that psychotherapy has believed for a long time, but now we have science. Now we have fMRI machines to see that when you are in the presence of someone, when your senses are connecting, there is something that your brains in the same place. And you can see that in an fMRI machine. So the quality of human connection is what we need to stabilize ourselves and to heal our culture. And I think we just have to be tolerant with our own imperfections and with the imperfections of other people because we don't know what just happened to them. That instant, you're right in the middle and it's beautiful. That's amazing. But it's also amazing to find a connection like that with someone who comes from another part of the world, another part of the country with a very different background, and realize that when we get past small talk, because small talk makes everyone nervous, nobody knows that game. When you get past small talk, when you ask yourself and each other real deep and beautiful questions, you cut to the quick, and now you're talking soul to soul. So we always show videos that are inspiring because, for instance, in the field of if they're being a jerk, what I try and do is remember, like, I've been a jerk and I'll probably be a jerk again. And I hope somebody will forgive me.
And yeah, I'm always saying you don't know what people are walking. You just don't know what people are walking and what families. We know a lot of people are walking. A lot. I think it's so important that we be conscious with each other. I want to come back to a couple of things, and then I really want you to talk to us about DIY human. But
Mhm.
I want to talk a little bit more about, because I so agree with you about humanizing the conversations. I
Mhm.
just think it is so critical. And you mentioned technology, and I know I have a daughter, she's 35 years old now, born with Down syndrome. And she's a very kooky, interesting personality. She's very know-it-all like her mom. But when I gave her technology, an iPhone, iPad, things like that, it really started majorly impacting her mental health. And I remember almost regretting giving it to her, but she's a 35-year-old woman. That's not fair for me not to give her technology, especially when she loves it so much. But you had mentioned a little bit about, how technology has changed our life, and it can enhance our lives, but it can also hurt us. But we're also right now talking a lot about artificial intelligence. And the thing that worries me is that humans are programming artificial intelligence, and we have all these unconscious and conscious biases. And
Mhm.
so I just was wondering if you wanted to talk about that topic just a little bit.
About technology and biases. First of all, as much as I really believe everybody is harmed by technology,
I agree.
I also think, and I can't speak for everybody, but I think it is profoundly wonderful.
Right.
So you can have a connection to everything, that every curiosity that pops up, and learn so much and connect with so many different people. But the price is high because it's so compelling, because we wind up spending so much more time in cyberspace sometimes than we do in reality.
Right.
Um, our brains, our psyches, and our biology were not set up for this. And of course, that's why we're freaking out, because we're not going to change the human body. And if it does evolve, it's not going to be at the same speed as technology. So I think the best way to deal with it is to acknowledge it and to, particularly on an individual basis, understand the difference between who you really are and what has happened to you, what has been told to you directly or indirectly. Most people have memories of things. Oh, you can't do that, or you're not good at that, or that's not a good idea, or you won't make money doing that, or all of these things, sometimes well intentioned, sometimes not. But all of these things that easily derail us, especially when we're young. And so I think part of the task of adulthood is reconnecting with ourselves and declaring for ourselves who we are not, what we value, and some of those things change over time. So it's really important to give yourself permission to have your own sense of the meaningfulness of your life and how you would like to make it more purposeful, be in your own control without outside influences.
Yeah. But that is also hard to do.
It's very
So I
hard.
know, yeah. So I know you help people do that. So
Absolutely.
maybe this is a good time to move to DIY human.
Right. The narrative method launched DIY Human about 5 years ago as a way to provide opportunities for people to take this work and do it on their own. I had mentioned earlier, we always use prompts in our Zoom-ins. And by the way, all of these, we do 3 a week. They're free to the public.
Wow.
I want thousands of people to eventually come, but right now it's easy to get on and you can sign up for as few or as many as you like. And people are given the experience of what I'm talking about. I'm not teaching, I'm not fixing, I don't think anybody's broken, and I'm not allowing others to try and fix or try and probe, to just receive as witnesses other people's stories and experiences. And so that is really important. But I also know from being a therapist that you don't need a license to use your humanity. You don't need to have studied to find your empathy. You just need to adhere to a very respectful and expansive perspective about what is normal. And in my opinion, get rid of that. Everything that is either or is just too simplistic when it comes to human beings. Every human being has idiosyncrasies, and every human being has aspects that don't really work so well. And we try and change them, and we can to some extent, and other things we continue to struggle with. That's just life. And so we need to find ways to make peace with that. So we created these DIY human cards, and we have a couple of decks. You can get them on our website. And the idea is within each deck, you have all of the 12 core concepts of the narrative method, each with a number of prompts that you can use that are designed to be over because they're not so specific, but they're very compelling. So each time you use them, they'll make you think of another story. You can use them for writing, you can use them for conversation. And it's a way to take this yourself, to go beyond what we're offering and to put together your own group. It could be over the phone, over Zoom, live, however it works for you. And it's just wonderful to bring together your own community or new folks.
I agree. And to learn from each other. You don't want people that think exactly like you. They branch out, and I love to learn. So I always enjoy that. And I know that you and I are both here in the United States, but I work really hard making sure that people are thinking about it from a global perspective, because as you're saying, we are all human beings. And as our gas prices here in the United States are just exploding, I often remind my peers here that in Europe and in other parts of the world, they've been paying ridiculous amounts for gas forever. We've been
Well, there's
very,
a reason why it's exploding. It's
yeah,
because what's going on in with the Russians invading
that's right.
Ukraine.
That's right. And we all have to come together to help.
Look, it's more of a burden for some people than others, but it's not fair that anyone should have a burden.
I
We
agree.
should all be covered in medical care,
Mhm.
in human beings who have an ear or can help us, and we should all be able to afford living our lives. It's sometimes hard to balance, but I
Mhm.
agree with you. Unless we realize that we're just divided giant swimming pool. And other than that, we're one world. We just haven't been invited into that safety, and it's up to us to create it.
Ooh, well said. I agree. I agree. I want to go to another topic that I just want you to advise us on. And that one thing, once again, I have two children. My son is 33 and my daughter's 35. And my daughter was born with Down syndrome, but she started having some pretty significant issues, and we didn't understand why. We went to a therapist. I contacted a family therapist and told the therapist that my daughter had Down syndrome and told them what the situation was. And then we went there. My
I'm not
husband,
liking this.
no, I know, it's not a good story. So then we went there, and the therapist started appropriately and said, with a little disclaimer, telling my daughter that if she were going to hurt somebody else or hurt herself, she'd have to tell the police. Just given that little, what you say here is confidential, but you can't hurt yourself or somebody else. So my
Mhm.
daughter, without missing a beat, started talking about how her ex-husband had beat her. And she went on this long explanation of what had happened in the police. And my daughter is such a good storyteller. And the therapist was shocked, visibly shocked. So my daughter takes a breath, and I said, okay, none of that's true. And the therapist said, I can't help y'all. And she made us pay for the visit and made me and
None
my
of that's
husband
true, meaning
terrified. And
your
yeah,
daughter.
yeah, my daughter feel like she's so broken, she can't even see a therapist. It feels that often people with differences don't get the same access to therapy that others do.
Unfortunately, it's always good to try and find a therapist who has experience with your particular concerns, because the damage for a new client, especially if that was her first experience, it could just be, I'm done. Nope, I'm done. I don't want to risk that again. I'm rejected. I'm coming to you for help and I'm rejected because I'm too defective for you.
Yeah, we didn't try. It turned out my daughter was sick, she wound up going in the hospital. So why she was struggling with her behavior was because she was having chronic pain. Gosh, I wish we could have gone to a therapist to figure that out. But I just say that because it has to be said, because people experience this every day. And at a time when so many people are going to therapists because of the world, that's why when I find someone like you, Sherry, I just want to let everybody know about the work you're doing and really turn up the volume, because we need the Sherrys of the world,
Yeah.
because we are not taught how to be humans. We aren't. I
Oh,
remember growing up in the South in the United States, and I was actually taught that there were certain people that were not as good as us. There was people that had different colored skin than me, but also even worse than those people were those darn Northerners. because we
Mm,
were still caught up in the Civil War. So it was like, and I remember even as a little kid thinking, what? They're from New York? But what? We don't like them because their skin is dark. They do better in the sun than I do. So what? So I remember as a kid not buying it. But I think a lot of kids do buy it because your parents are telling it. So it
yeah,
must be true, Sherry. So
absolutely. I
so
mean,
now we're having to rethink all this.
and that's, I think, regardless of whether you were told, taught, we all have to upgrade our thinking because a lot of the ideas that we have concluded as a result of our childhood have not been upgraded since then. And once you start having a relationship with a new person, you often see that those limitations may get in the way. So your work is never done, but you know what? That's part of the gift of living is to grow.
Oh, so
And
true. So true.
to upgrade your thinking and take what you had assumed to be true, or maybe it was beat into, whatever that was, you have your own mind and you have a right to challenge and should challenge everything. Why not?
Right. Even as a little kid, I remember just being a little confused. I asked a lot of questions in church too that were not always appreciated. I've just always been a curious person. But Sherry, I know that I've kept you almost 30 minutes, but what I would like to do before we end the call is for you maybe to tell us a little bit more about your group sessions and how people could join it. I know that we have a very large global audience. Most people do speak English, but how tell us more about how people can get involved because we are really hurting and people need to go somewhere where they can rethink who they are.
Absolutely. First of all, the website is thenarrativemethod.org, and you will see the DIY human products in the store. But you will also see a calendar. And we have 3 free events every night, every week, 3 a
Wow,
night.
that'd be a lot.
I'm tired. 3 a week. Sunday mornings, we initiate the new concept of the week. It's the Sunday morning right till 9:30 Pacific. And then I stay an extra 15 minutes for questions or concerns. In these writing groups, you are writing for only minutes and you come out with something because there's no time to let all those negative thoughts, oh, who do you think you are? You can't write. Blah, 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 blah.
Right, right, right.
So we liberate people from judgment because we're not teaching, we don't have suggestions for your writing, we're not trying to fix you. We're just witnessing and appreciating each other's work. And remarkably, because it's such a short time, it's easy to let go. And the prompts are extremely compelling. So after people write, then they go into small breakouts and they share what they've written. And we all come back and do what we call a mosaic. And in the mosaic, each person reads one line, boom, 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 boom. And it is incredible to experience a little bit from every voice, all inspired by the same thing, and to appreciate how uniquely each person takes it. And it's a way to appreciate your own voice as well as appreciating the diversity of others.
Oof.
And so we do that on Sunday morning, and then the Tuesday night, right? It's a different material, but it's the same format, 4 o'clock p.m. Pacific. Then Thursday nights, we do something called the Human Zoom In. And rather than looking at photos, we will look at compelling videos that are mind blowing. Oh, I never knew this was possible. Just big ideas and things that really pertain to the humanity that we are so interested in. And after that, you get a prompt and you go into breakouts and you talk about personal stories that are evoked from those prompts.
Oh, that
So
sounds powerful.
it's really wonderful. And just you make a new friend in a second because again, there's no what do you do, how much money do you have,
Right.
where none of that. It's just who are you?
Oh, and that's so important. What about on social media? Can people find you on social media?
Yes, we're on all the social medias as the Narrative Method, and you can find us there as well. And I really invite your audience, please sign up and come. We love the fact that we have so much diversity, both from this country and other countries.
Right.
And what is cooler and getting to meet someone who's different from you, who you would never have gotten to meet,
Oh,
and to
I
boot,
agree.
and realizing, wow, I never met somebody from your group, or I never had a deep conversation with, and I am so excited by what we share.
Oh, that's so powerful. And this is how we move forward
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
So once again, Sherry is the narrativemethod.com, and that's
No,
where you can
.org,
sign up.
.org.
.org, excuse me. But
Right.
we will also include that. We'll include that in the link. Thank you. I changed it. But Sherry, thank you for being on the program today. Thank you for your work. I hope you'll come back on the program again, because I think the conversations you're having about who are we as humans? How do we
Yeah,
heal from our
yeah,
traumas? How do we
right,
support each other? I just think there's nothing more important than that right now. So
right.
thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you so
work.
much for having me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So thank you to the audience, and I will see everybody next time on Human Potential at Work. Special thanks to Kevin for being my producer, too. Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.